welcome. I am Fred Wellman, host of Otherwise the FPWellman and Otherwise Sunday Show. You're here with us now. Good morning. It's so good to see you guys here live. I know you guys are kind of getting, man, look at me filling up the room already. My God, we don't mess around here. I just, another crazy week, which we say every week because every week's freaking crazy. We got so much to talk about. You know, news happens fast in America these days, but we also have to take a minute and have a good laugh. We got all those things here on Moxie Sunday. Before we get started, I need you to do me a giant favor as you're getting settled in. I hope you got coffee. I got my coffee, National Parks and Richmond, Virginia, everywhere else. As you get settled, make sure you go to the YouTube channel, on Demoxy channel. You should subscribe. You should hit the bell. You should go to our social media channels. You may be watching us on my FPWellman channels. Glad to have you. We've got great folks to talk to today, but the smartest thing you can do is subscribe so we can grow our family and grow our channel. All right, well, let's jump into the news. JJ, let's go to the news, man. There's so much to talk about. We're calling it the Friday Night Massacre. Just after business hours, Donald Trump posted on his Truth Social on Friday night. He was firing the chair of the Joint Chiefs, General C.Q. Brown, and replacing him with a recently retired Air Force three-star named Daniel Raisin Kane. Now, that had been signaled for some time. We kind of knew it was coming, but it was shocking in a lot of ways because he added on after that, shortly after that, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth put out a press release saying he was also going to let go the Chief of Naval Operations, Lisa Franchetti, Admiral Lisa Franchetti, the first woman to serve in that position, and oddly, Vice Chief of Staff of the Air Force, General Jim Slife, as well. But what was interesting to a lot of us who are veterans, especially, or work in the national security area, was buried at the bottom of Pete Hegseth's little press release was the second to last sentence, which said they're also going to be letting go all three of the Army, Navy, and Air Force's top judge advocate generals, the top lawyers of the service branches. Now, that in itself is bizarre and is yet to be explained. There's a lot of speculation. My friend Greg Jaffe over at the New York Times now wrote a piece about how there's a lot of people are speculating that comes from Pete Hegseth's long negative thoughts about judge advocate generals and lawyers from his time coddling war criminals and believing that they kept us from winning. But there has been no word from Hegseth, the Pentagon, about why the JAGs were fired. My sources inside the building tell me they had no idea. The actual service chiefs of the Navy, Air Force, and the Army did not know that their lawyers were going to be fired. And these are three-star positions. These aren't small things. They run the entire Judge Advocate Corps for each service. And what does a Judge Advocate General do for the service? They're the guy that tells the boss what's legal and what's not legal. Obviously, a lot of us I've wrote a Substack about that, got very popular over the weekend, saying, you know, if you're looking for something, if you want to break the law, the first person you fire is the lawyer that tells you no, right? And so there's been a lot of concern about that. We have to wonder why he's doing it. Now let's talk about the guy he's nominating to replace General Brown, a very good man, by the way. General Brown served for 40 years. He was an F-16 fighter pilot, multiple combat tours and missions, every bit the warrior, in spite of the fact he's been accused of being soft and being a DEI hire, which is the most ridiculous thing, considering that SACDEF is completely unqualified for his job. So, as always, now the joke's been going around since this new guy was hired. Daniel Kane is a retired lieutenant general in the United States Air Force. You know, to become the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, by regulation, there's a number of gates that you have to meet in your career. For example, you have to command at certain levels. You have to have, you have to have certain schools you've gone to. By every measure of regulatory list, this new guy, Daniel Kane, doesn't make that list. He is not qualified. He never even commanded at the squadron level, which is what the rank I was at, Lieutenant Colonel, back and when I was still in the Army. And so he's not qualified to be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. But who is he? He's Trump's favorite general. We won't run the video today, but Trump's been talking about his favorite general, Raisin Kane, since at least 2019 when he met him in Iraq, supposedly. Supposedly, General Kane told Trump that all the guys in Washington were wrong, that they could defeat the ISIS caliphate if they just unleashed people like him to do their jobs. And Trump hasn't stopped talking about since. We've also heard stories since that he swore his undying love and fealty to Donald Trump, and even donned a MAGA hat at one point, according to Trump. Here's where it gets really weird for me. Kane just retired from the Air Force. His last job in the Air Force as a three-star general was 3 years at the CIA as the military liaison, the assistant director for military affairs, which is a very important job by every means. You remember the CIA and the military conduct quite a bit of operations together, special operations. Who do you think flies the CIA operatives into their locations, oftentimes beyond their own air fleet? They use military, for example. But he just retired in December. after the election. And then he got jobs in January, according to his LinkedIn, at not one, not two, but three different crypto firms. Our friends at Capital Hunters found out that one of those crypto firms was founded by Jared Kushner's brother. One was an investment from Peter Thiel. So a guy who's been working intelligence issues for 3 years got a job in crypto. And then just a month and a half, 2 months later, he gets hired to come back in the military, get promoted to 4-star, and become the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. I have questions. A lot of people have questions, and none of this adds up. None of it makes any sense. Why would you drag somebody out and bring them back in? And I'm hoping that our friends in the Senate will ask those questions. This is a Senate confirmation job. None of the other replacements have been named yet. So we're waiting for those names to occur. But this is a major politicization of the military that will have long-term effects. As I mentioned in my Substack and on our Vote Fetch show on Friday night, you have to understand, if you don't understand the military, you don't make a general overnight. You make a general over 40 years. And so to fire these guys now, younger officers, for example, let's say you're a black officer or a woman officer who's been in the Army or the military for 20 years, was going to stay past 20 with your family and hopefully seek that very infinitesimal chance of being a general or being a 4-star general. You may question that decision now when you see the politicization that you could work your entire career, have by every measure one of the most successful careers in the Navy or the Air Force, and simply because the whims of petty people like Pete Hegseth, your career ends in a Truth Social post. Those people will vote with their feet by leaving. That means we won't have those people 20 years from now when they should be generals. It'll leave the sycophants and the MAGA now. They'll still be in 10, 20 years from now because the pyramid gets very small as you get promoted. That's what a lot of us, when we talk about the damage to national security, mean. Many people think it's just now in the next 4 years. No, these decisions go long term. On top of that, and last point on this, we also found out over the weekend that it appears he's also fired Lieutenant General Jennifer Short. She was the special assistant to the Secretary of Defense, military position as well. Combat A-10 pilot, okay? So also a warrior. There'll be a lot more. My sources inside the Pentagon are telling me that this is just the beginning. So we'll keep track of this story for you as well. But you can see what's the one thing. So of these 7 folks who've been fired, I believe over half were women. It tells you all you need to know about Pete Hegseth. Next story. So over the weekend, during this week also, there's been a lot of pressure on DOGE and Musk to come up with some numbers to prove how much they're saving, folks. As you guys know, the running joke has been that they're only accounting one side of the ledger. It's kind of like saying, well, I didn't pay my mortgage this month, so I saved $2,000 because I might lose my house. They're not actually doing counting, they're just doing cutting. What came out this week, though, was they decided to boldly show their accounting numbers, and they put up a number of $16 billion in savings on their wall of receipts on their website. Of course, half of those would be attributed to just one single line item, $8 billion contract for immigration and customs enforcement agent. But the DOGE list vastly overstated the actual value of that contract as people started digging in the federal database. Because, by the way, everything DOGE has found is public information already. Okay. There's nothing secret about any of these. They've been published on the federal websites for years. There's no secret contracts. Okay. If you get a contract in the military or the government, it's published. So this secret contract we found people dug in and quickly found out that what was saying was 8 billion was actually only 8 million, not 8 billion. So the larger total savings plus side 55 billion also lacks any specific documentation of where this number came from. The company that owns that $8 million contract just does program and technical support, and on top of that, over 2.5 million of the contract's already been spent. So they didn't save even 8 million. By cutting it at this minute, they may save, if you will, 5.5. Again, all the numbers are fake. They're not actually saving any money. If you look at past versions of this, they're not. And the other thing they're trying to do is fire probationary employees. That's their next move, as you know. There's 200,000 probationary workers who've been agencies less than 2 years in the government, but that's not what just a probationary worker is. A probationary employee of the federal government could be someone who recently got a major promotion, and that new promotion has a probationary period. They may be somebody who's been doing a job like a scientist for 18 years and just got a new pay grade. That's probation. So where these uninformed and unvetted, I call them, goblins, if you will, the evil little munchkins of DOGE are doing. They think that anyone who's probationary means they could be fired immediately. And they're actually firing employees who we desperately need, which they've found out multiple times, which we'll talk about, as a matter of fact, with Congressman Kaptur when she joins us later in the show. But it is possible that these things are happening. But the DOGE website has been wrong multiple times. By Wednesday morning, they tried to update it. They still haven't got it right. But see, the ICE line in that wasn't the only mistake. CBS News pointed out later in the week that DOGE claimed 654 million 3 times over in just one contract, which of course, once again, is not 400 million, it's just 165. So over and over, it looks like, based on outside people doing it, they've overstated their own savings by $1.96 billion. It's not saving. Okay? They're not saving anything. So again, we'll keep our eye on this story as it goes on. They're trying to be, quote, transparent, but the truth is they're not transparent. They're not actually saving the government any money. They're just simply cutting things randomly and hurting us in the process and hurting a lot of good people. Look, the fact is, if you unemploy 200,000 Americans, we're going to have a problem in the contract. And let me give you an example before we move away from the story. You know, I used to live in the DC area. A lot of our friends do. My family, one of my owns a store in this DC area. Um, they're already seeing a drop in sales because, you know, if you're a military person or you're a federal employee, you're going to hold your money close just in case you lose your job. So there isn't just the folks losing their jobs that have economic impact. It's also outside of that. I believe we saw that Walmart sales are going down. Walmart sales are going down. Do Walmart sales ever go down? That's a sign that people are starting to close their wallets. So we're going to see very major impacts. So they just think they're cutting a few of these evil deep state people. They're cutting veterans. They're cutting people who spend money in our economy, and everyone's going to pay a price for that. So we'll see about the savings. The last story I want to talk about is one of the most ridiculous ones you're going to see. And this is the idea. I don't know if you guys saw this, but over the weekend, yesterday, Musk posted, and then emails went out to all 2.3 million federal workers demanding that they got this email, demand they post 5 bullets of what they accomplished last week. And they have till Monday night at midnight to submit this to OPM itself, to say, otherwise, according to Trump, now this is the best part, according to Musk, now Musk tweeted saying that if they don't reply, that's a resignation. The HR email from OPM doesn't say that. It just says they have to reply. But on top of that, if you understand the structure of the federal government, while OPM is technically the personal management office for the United States government, they're not the HR office for the personnel. Okay? That actually belongs to each agency. And each agency of the federal government has their own personnel management systems and regulations. Let's have an example. Technically, everyone in the military is a federal employee that works for OPM. But look, you guys get that a person who joins the Army as a private doesn't work for OPM, doesn't work for the White House, okay? They work for the Army or they work for the Navy, who in turn works for DOD. That's a reason that their governments are broken into these cabinet offices and different directories for that reason. Apparently, somebody at OPM doesn't get that, so they sent a mass email, and it's kind of funny. I don't know if we can show. I don't know if we have it, the email itself, which is okay, JJ. But the email, first of all, came out as spam for most of these folks because it's from an outside organization outside their actual agency. Because each of these agencies have their own email system, by the way, and they've asked us to reply. Now, someone, I'm not going to say who it was, but it was me, put that email out, which is hr@opm.gov. And I've been encouraging folks, look, if you want to, you should totally write hr@opm.gov and let them know what you did last week. Myself, I had norovirus. We won't go into the details, but I'm happy to share those details with hr@opm.gov and let them know 5 things I did last week while I had the norovirus. It's a great technique, I think. I think it's a very good look because clearly they want to know what we did. Now, I'm not a federal government employee. I do get money from the government because I'm a retired Army officer. So, you know, we could make it work. Either way, I highly encourage you to reach out to hr@opm.gov and let them know what you did last week because, you know, that's what they want to know. I'm sure it'll work out fine for everybody in the meantime. Right now, though, the unions are telling their union members, nah, we're not doing this. So we'll see what happens Monday at midnight. But yet another overreach from Elon Musk. which is a great place to transition to our guests. So we've got a great show. I don't know if you saw the previews. We've got Joe Jacobson we've got Congressman Kaptur. We've got comedian. I mean, I'm telling you, every week the show gets better. I'm glad so many of you are joining us. I hope you're telling your friends right now. First, I want to talk to Joe Jacobson. Joe is a political strategist with over 10 years of lobbying and government and electoral experience. He's the founder of the Progress Action Fund, which we'll talk about their commercials in a second. You're going to want to see him. And of course, is very involved. He's been working in the union space for many years. Let's welcome Joe Jacobson to the show. Joe, man, welcome to the show. It's good to meet you.
Likewise, thanks for having me. You had me dying with the HR at OPM.gov.
OPM.gov.
Yeah, okay, got it.
Wait, we don't want to repeat it too much. HR at OPM.gov. No reason to know that email. But if you want to write, feel free. Welcome. It's kind of your style, right? Your commercial is great. Welcome to the show. Kind of a crazy time to be in the messaging business, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. The right wing does such a good job of trolling the left. Let's not unilaterally disarm and fight fire with fire. It's straight out of the playbook that we need to be operating. So much respect for you, sir. Appreciate you.
Thanks. I was with the Lincoln Project back in the day, and so I've got some experience with the cutthroat world we have to be in, and a lot of those work because they get in people's heads. And I know you've been talking about that. You talk about messaging doesn't have to be dour per se. That people remember things. They also remember how they feel, right?
Exactly, 100%. The reason being is most Democratic ads, or just most ads in general, they show people what's going on. Or sorry, they tell people what's going on. They don't show them. And, you can tell people, oh, Trump is going to raise your taxes, or he's going to, have abortion bans. But if you show the consequences of that, that's just so much more powerful. Yeah. Trump had some ads like the she's for they, them, he's for you. And that kind of just hit an emotional chord. Very toxic and disgusting, obviously. But at the same time, it hit that emotional chord. So the ads we do, your Republican congressman in your bedroom, it's not for the faint of heart. But the reason we do it is that, you're not forgetting that ad, to say the least.
I think we actually have one queued up, JJ, right? Do you want to, let's show one. And you're right, not for the faint of heart, if I know which one we queued up. JJ? Oh, that's General Brown. Oh, I beat you to it.
Also awful. Okay,
yeah, we're going to talk about that too. Oh, brother. You know what? Let's just cut to that. Yeah, JJ, while you're working. Fine. Okay, so you saw the story earlier, Joe. I know I saw you back in the green room. Oh, you're good. JJ, I love you.
Another one.
You guys
like DJ Khaled. Okay, it's okay. I love DJ Khaled. Another one. There you go.
We're doing it live. This is live television, folks. Get used to it. Honestly, I think you were back screen when I was doing the news, and we talked about the firing of all this chairman of the Joint Chiefs and others. And of course, what I usually do in these situations, I will go online and see what our leaders are saying about these things. And that tweet, JJ, if you've got it available, that was from Hakeem. And look, I don't want to beat people. I don't like beating people up, and I don't want to, but there's just times where the moment calls for a certain voice and a certain ring. And you saw the tweet from Hakeem Jeffrey. He said, what was it? This is a golden moment for Putin, or I think it was a haiku. Was that a poem? Did you? What do you think?
Yeah, the Positive America guys talk a lot about this, where Democrats are reading the teleprompter notes. So I think we kind of need to be speaking in the language of, not to be too blunt about it, but the UFC fight. I mean, we need to be, our slogan on our website is when Republicans go low, we go lower. So I think we need to actually pretend we're in the octagon a little bit, but then we also need to be using the language of everyday folks, not, a republic if you can keep it type stuff. To be honest, I didn't learn that in high school, and I'm in politics, to say the least. So I think it's important that we're just trying to tie things back to everyday people. The USAID conversation is really good because most of it is pretty theoretical about, we need to keep our standing in the world and, be a leader. And that's fine. But I think the key points to hit on that is farmers are going to lose their jobs. Farmers, billions of dollars and thousands of jobs are created by the U.S. sending crops overseas to help people. That's good for business here. If Trump and Elon Musk want to cut that, that's bad for business. It's bad for jobs. So I think we need to make it very practical. when people are paying attention to politics, they're like, what are you doing for me? Not, what are you doing for the general Earth or solar system?
Well, it's also you tell the larger story, the smaller story. I think one of my most frustrating things is that we would get stuck up in data and nebulous things like this is another tax cut for billionaires. Like, okay, I get it. We had a guest last week on who pointed out that when they did polling on that, only like 5% of people are actually rich, but 20% of Americans think they're rich, and another 20% of that top plan to be rich. And so when you talk about tax cuts for rich people, they go, "That's going to hurt me when I'm rich," right? And we keep doing that message. It's like, okay, that doesn't work. Where the truth, like I said, is no, you're going to be out of a job. Or, this is break. What would happen if you broke the law, right? And what would happen if you decide to break the law? And it just seems like we're flailing about. Democrats have this habit of talking data, right, instead of story.
100%. If y'all queue up the ad, I can allude to, you'll get the picture better. But for one ad we're thinking about, it's basically two guys are struggling to pay the bills, and then in comes your Republican congressman who's subservient to Elon Musk in a pretty visceral way. If this is the red line, we're always above the red line. So there will be some content where it's not just that, Republicans are subservient to their sugar daddy Elon, but that it's at your expense. Prices are higher, eggs are higher. And what are they focusing on? They're focusing on renaming the Gulf of Mexico, Mount Denali, Nancy Mace and Lauren Boebert, checking your genitals before you go into the restroom like they tried to do at the Capitol. Like, they're just weird, man, but they're focused on like that stuff, not on you. That's the important piece.
And it is weird, and they are dicks. I mean, there was some, I love when Representative Garcia, showed a dick pic, and what I loved about that story, though, and I've shared it before in the show, is people were like, "Oh, I can't believe it," and he went on CNN, and Brianna Keeler, whom I love, was like, "Do you think it was appropriate to call Elon Musk a dick?" He's like, "Well, he is a dick," but what I loved about Garcia is he turned right around and said, "And yet here I am on your show." Talking about right. So because he did that, let's call it a stunt. Let's be honest. Because he did the stunt of calling Elon a dick and showing a picture of him, guess what? The mainstream media brought him on to talk about that. I mean, if we're going to break through the noise, we have to message in a way that reaches people, don't we?
We do, because average people speak like that. I think a good test to see for Democrats in the future, I really like Josh Shapiro because he talks about get stuff done, but sometimes he censors himself and calls it stuff rather than get shit done. I think, like, when you have the podium, when you're running for president, like Secretary of State Clinton had like Stronger Together. Obama had like Hope and Change. If he runs for president, is it get shit done on the podium, literally, or is it get stuff done? I think that's a big tell for like just a good, tell for politicians, because if you're scared to say the word shit, maybe you shouldn't be in the octagon with Donald Trump. Say what you want about him, but he's not afraid to say what's on his mind. And I think that's what people are looking for. People are very discontent with the status quo. I wrote an op-ed in The Hill previously, and one statistic that I find very interesting is that the American people prefer colonoscopies to the American Congress. So if that's the bar we're working with, I think we need to be, not trying to have a novel or a biography by Robert Caro written about us. We need to be speaking like the average American, and that's honestly much easier. Then you don't have to overthink it.
Yeah, and we talk about that a lot, and obviously in our we all kind of some the discussions of the messaging and the failures of messaging during the campaign, the election. But now it also feels like we're in a messaging war daily at this point, right? I mean, the Republicans are hitting us in the face every day. New executive orders, new stupid things. There's been a few. Mr. Jeffries himself actually spoke, I think, one day in Congress. Says, he was talking about one of the Yankees. I don't want to follow. I'm never going to mention a Yankee baseball player by name, but he was saying, he's good because he waits for the right pitch. But a lot of us, I feel like, well, when the hell is the right pitch? I mean, I said in Substack the other day, well, when you fire 6 generals and that include all the lawyers in the Pentagon, is that the right pitch? I mean, it almost feels like they're not swinging for any pitches at some point, don't they?
It's unfortunate. I am a baseball fan. I'm a Dodgers fan, so that's good time. But I'm actually from Seattle, so I'm a Mariners fan, most importantly, which is a very sad existence just across the board. But that's a longer conversation. Yeah, we're not swinging at the right. It's kind of like we're swinging at the wrong pitches with T-ball skills. So, like, if we were swinging at some of this these firings and some of this foreign aid cuts, like USAID, with, I don't know, Paul Bunyan's axe, then like, sure, count me in. But we're swinging at it with a T-ball bat. And I think, let's get somebody who can handle the axe, but also has that dog in him. So that's my perspective. But I think we also, on the pitch side specifically, I think it's important to maybe have the pitches be the pitches we're swinging at. Let's focus on the ones that are impacting people. We only get so many opportunities. And until we find somebody who can just, hit a home run, I'd rather be more judicious. Like it's not a good look for us to have like missing on, even if the pitch is A, if we're missing with a bad bat, like why bother? We need some people out there who can actually hustle.
Yeah, I mean, Tina Smith did really well. I don't know if you have that one, JJ, but I love what Sarah Smith did. She called it for what it was the other day about the firings and other things. She's going hard. We've got a few folks are going very directly, saying what this is and what's going on, speaking in the language of the average American. It does feel like we speak over people's heads a lot. Do you think that's a constant problem on our side of the fence? That here's how I talk about it. I'm a political consultant in my other job sometimes, and every time I'd work with a candidate, I tell my candidates. The worst thing I have with my candidates is they give a speech, and especially our Democrats, or I wouldn't work with Democrats, but they bring a list of their 12 policy priorities, right? They get up, they're like, I literally went, and I love the guy, and I thank God I fixed him, and and he literally read 12 of his policies, and people were falling asleep. And I tell every candidate, it's not so much what you say in a speech, or if people want to remember how they feel. They're going to remember how they felt. They may not remember their words, but they may remember how you made them feel. And I think that's the thing that was going back to your ads, which I don't know if we're going to tee up. I apologize, but the ones like the Republican the Republican in your bedroom, where people were, the gutting one was the woman's dying, and the Republican congressman saying, well, but good news is you can have more kids with somebody else. I know how I felt. I don't remember the exact words, but I remember how I felt. I mean, do you think that's a case we have to translate into better commercials, better ads, better messaging completely?
You're preaching to the choir. The important thing is kind of working backwards from the feelings. So Tim Walz did a really great job when he was coming up trying to, make the rounds to get the VP nom. But then the campaign folks kind of came in and took out the joy and fun of the campaign. For us, what I think is really important, and what he did is he was like, okay, Republicans are creepy and weird. I'm just going to label them that. So when we run our ads, it's like, okay, how can we make them seem creepy, weird, and out of touch? And that's kind of the conclusion we're working backwards from. So like our bedroom ad, we have two people, they're in their underwear, they're hooking up, they're having a good time. They're, like every American wants, they should have privacy in their own bedroom. They reach for their birth control. And then the Republican congressman comes in and takes it away because he's banning birth control. And the end line is, I'm just going to watch to make sure you don't do anything illegal. That's creepy. So I think we need to be having a feeling being the narrative, and that produces results. We had 5 ads last cycle, and on average, each ad got 56 million views. That's like, the Joe Rogan interview on YouTube, for example, got 55 million views. So I think this content speaks for itself. And the reason it works so well, in addition, is because the right wing gets trolled and they uplift the content. But we've tested the messaging, and it works with voters who are even Republicans, not as much as Democrats or independents, but it works with some Republicans. So they're spreading their content to their own voters because they're so triggered. It's a big feedback loop. And I think Democrats need to be a little bit more on the offense, but also offensive too. If you're, if here's the red line, sometimes you got to go over the red line. Otherwise, you're not going to make news.
That's it right there. And again, I'm a Lincoln Project veteran, so yes, we were accused of going over the line a few times, and sometimes we did literally go over the line and kind of had to pull back a little bit. But it is important to hit hard. And God bless Mrs. Obama. I love her to death. I had the privilege to work with her when I was a veterans advocate. And I will curse the day she said, when they go low, we go high. I'm like, no, fuck that. We just ceded the battlefield. We just surrendered the battlefield. It's time to. Oh, it looks like JJ does have that ad. I would love to show this ad if you don't mind. I know we've got time. Our panel's here waiting. All right, panel, you got to wait. JJ, can you pull that up? I'd love to see that ad. I want to see what we're talking about.
Dr. Davis, what do I do?
John, she needs an abortion, or she's going to die from the pregnancy.
Sorry, that's not happening. What are you doing? Who are you? I'm your Republican congressman. Now that we're in charge, we banned abortion. No exceptions. You can't do this. She's dying. I won the last election, so it's my decision. But don't worry. You can still have children, just not with her.
Subtle. Woo, right?
If you like that one, we're actually doing 2 new ads. I mentioned that Republicans are very concerned with who's using the right restroom, and they're also very consumed with pleasing their sugar daddy, Elon Musk. So for anybody who's interested, they can go to www.progressactionfund.com, see what we're up to, and see where our Republican congressman ends up next. He's kind of like Jake from State Farm, except where you don't want him to be. We think brand consistency is very important. So he's the counter Jake from State Farm. So everybody can check out our website to see what we got going on.
I love it, and I think this is the answer. I do feel very. That's why I want to get you on. It is this. We have to, in a way that resonates. And I love what you said about the right wing getting mad, because they do that all the time. I love when they come into my YouTube comments and all. I'm like, oh, you're a pedo. Okay, are you sure I'm a pedo? Really? Well, thanks for the engagement. It's like, oh, geez, that's a new one. I haven't heard that in the last hour.
Yeah, I heard Matt Gaetz loves to comment that a bunch. He has a bunch of burner accounts, so I'm sure he loves doing that for sure.
That's probably true. Well, again, you tell us again where we can find you and learn more.
Absolutely. Thank you again for having me. You can go to www.progressactionfund.com to see all of our ads. We'll be releasing 2 here coming up the next couple months to highlight just how creepy and weird Republicans are on transgender issues, since they're just so obsessed with that. It's disgusting that they're putting people down. And then on tax issues too, since they got their sugar daddy and they do not want to upset him, quite literally. So we'll be releasing some ads here in the next 2 months.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of room for us to go after these guys in the way that makes them very uncomfortable, because they are kind of tense. So, man, I can't tell you enough. Thanks enough for joining us, brother. It was a great conversation. I can't wait to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Appreciate you. Thank you, sir.
Cheers. Woo! How about that ad? That's kind of what we have to do. We have to go hard. We have to go deep. We have to go, low, because that's what they're doing to us. And if we cede that battle, if we continue to let them just run over us and not fight back in a way that reaches actual average human beings the way they speak, we're gonna fight. We showed briefly the tweet from Mr. Jeffries. I get it. That's his style. But we're at war. And people just don't understand that we are at war right now. We're not, that's what we're at. They're firing generals. They're firing lawyers. At some point, either we recognize the situation we're in, and look, nobody wants to go to war. I actually did not want to go to war 4 times, but that was my job. And I was ordered and I went and I did my duty. I think a lot of us have to really recognize, our leadership needs to recognize, we've been called to duty. This is your moment. Maybe you don't want that be your moment. Maybe you had other plans. Maybe you want to focus on tax policy, but I got really fucking bad news for you. That's not where we're at. So I'm very hopeful that people start figuring it out. But on a lighter note, I'm so excited for this week's panel. I want to get to the panel. We've got a great pair of guests this week who are unique in their own voices and experiences, and will bring a lot of entertainment to us. We'll go ahead. JJ, let's key out the panel. I'll introduce everybody when they get here. Oh, man, welcome, man. Glad to see you guys. Welcome, Lisandra and David. Glad to have you. Lisandra Vazquez, Puerto Rican, Atlanta-based stand-up comedian, background in acting and improv storytelling. You may have caught her eye, if you don't remember, during the campaign when J.D. Vance talked about childless women being so miserable. She and her colleague did a wonderful video wiping their eyes with their dollar bills. Actually, there are hundreds, actually. Glad to have you. David, David, you're meeting right. If you don't know David, you may know his voice. David does a lot of voices. You're in Denver, aren't you, David?
Yeah, I'm in Denver, Colorado.
We're all over the country. This is great. It's always LA and Atlanta and New York. I'm in St. Louis. You guys are. So we're the flyover group today. It's glad to have you guys. Welcome to the show.
Thanks
for having me.
Lisandra, I want to address first off, because it's a major issue we have to address. You've been accused of being very jealous of Carolyn Levitt lately, and I think you should address this. Are you?
How am I coping?
Yes.
It's hard, No, I feel like it's so interesting, because I feel like you were talking about being trolled earlier, and they can't help themselves but to uplift our content whenever we criticize anybody, and what they can't yeah, I'm every time I criticize essentially like Caroline Levitt or something like that, they will jump to attacking me as a person. They'll attack my looks when I'm just addressing her horrible character. Like really,
Right.
truly, and I do like I have enough to chew on with that. Like she's ethically and morally corrupt. I don't have to like and then the presumption also is rooted in white supremacy because they want us to feel like we should all want to be white and blonde, blonde hair, blue eyes, and have have like a 60-year-old husband. You know, I don't. Oh, I, I'm supposed to want that. That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, all these Republican morals, right? Yeah, it's amazing, David. I know, Dave, you dive into a lot of things too, and you know, and I'm gonna date myself for you guys. So I am a grandpa. All right, so you know, and David, so you know, I actually this is gonna be bad. I was in high school and live watched when MTV was launched. Okay.
Wow.
Which is 1981, I think. You know, so when radio killed the music star, or when video killed the radio star, I was alive for that. And in retrospect, you know, I know you're a music video fan, and
Yeah,
I was there.
I think they're the greatest. I think that music videos are the easiest entrance into a new genre of music.
Okay,
Don't
I agree.
particularly align with. And I think that for you, especially these days when everything is so splintered, especially in entertainment, I think that we need to come back to music videos and have everybody just enjoy watching weirdos dance again.
I agree. I think it's the best, and it's such a God. It turns into TikTok and everything else we're doing. Everything stuff you do, Lisandra, is all and essentially music videos or anything else. Weren't you in a music video? I mean, David, buried deep in your background is a music video appearance, I believe, right?
I was in the My Sweet Lord George Harrison video. Yeah, actually.
Like, oh yeah, just a little one. I mean, come on.
No big deal. No big deal.
George Harrison. I mean, Jesus, man.
I mean, he wasn't there obviously, but we had some good people on set, so it was a lot of fun.
Well, that's a great resume bullet if there ever was one, you know. I have to agree. And on that note, Lisandra, you know, I was tipped off. You know, you're a big fan of Selena. Again, dating myself,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
reverse Selena. You know, yeah, you have a great. I mean, she's an amazing woman. What a tragic loss. But I didn't know as I was prepping that her killer is like up for parole soon. I mean, how long has
Yeah.
it been?
Oh, well, she's been in jail for 30 years. So this is so
Now I feel like shit. This show is making me look really old. But go ahead.
her parole hearing is March 30th of this
Wow.
year. So obviously like they have to take so much into account. So it's not there's like a lot of things, and this is like the problem. I'm looking a lot into like one of the things I've been thinking about is misinformation and disinformation
Right.
that exists on the internet, and
Yeah.
like a lot of people are just like taking like this little morsel of that date and like saying like people are making videos like this is going to be me outside the jail when she gets released March 30th. No, it's a parole hearing. Like we don't we're looking at all the data, and then if she does get released, if she does um, get granted parole, which it might not be, then there'll be a release date assigned on that after that hearing. But they have to hear it out. They have to, you know, of course, do all the things. But she does say she'll be safer on the outside, but I disagree.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I
I
don't
mean,
know.
Selena's become so iconic. I mean, and you're right, a new generation loves her, right?
Yeah, I mean, we all have access to the internet. I've seen the memes. I don't know, man. And she also, this is true. She did say that if she gets out, she would be interested in working with Shakira.
You know, it's the disconnect from reality, right, David? Is like, and I know you live in this world all the time. I've watched clips from your show, David. You know, look at that. There is this great disconnect from reality, isn't there? It's a constant battle, and it's bizarre, isn't it?
I think that's the most exciting thing about living in these times, right? We all have our own personalized echo chambers, and they're so comfortable.
Right.
Really
Right.
are.
You know, and you believe it. And I'm not one. And people, you know, people beat me up because I'm still on Twitter. Oh God, every
Oh,
liberals
boy.
hate. They hate that I'm on. I know. I get every time I'm on Blue Sky. I wait for the comments. Just watch. JJ's like I have to manage the comments. But it's important. I think I'm in there and to see what crazy shit they're saying, and it is a clue of what's for me as a political hack. I get a clue what people are saying. You can see the messaging. I mean, this week my son visited me, and we were at a bar because that's what we do when he's in town. He's 27; it's legal. and sure enough, you can. What I'll see somebody say something, and I showed him my trick, which is I go into Twitter and I'll type in almost like the 8 keywords of that tweet or message, and you can see the flow. You can, in the search, right? You know what I mean? It's like so. You can see the echo chamber, and he was like, "Shit!" When you see it, it's like the Wizard of Oz, right? They pull the screen back when you see the truth, isn't it?
I also feel like for real-time reactions, Twitter kind of can't be beat, right?
No,
like
exactly
on the pulse, exactly. Live tweeting events and stuff like that. It does have its place for fun.
It does. And where else can you tell JD Vance he's an idiot? I mean, that's the other part I like is like I go in there and I tell him he's an ass. It's great. They hate me. It's your hate makes me powerful. But it's
I
great.
tell you, looking at Twitter kind of makes me feel like maybe idiot isn't that big of an insult anymore because it's
I know I'm being GP. This show kind of went down R a long time ago, but I try to be. Every time I cuss too much, I get grandmas in my mentions like, "What are you doing?" And I used to cuss a lot in my Substacks, and I would get notes back. Hey, I can't share this with my kids. Sorry, ma'am. I apologize for that.
40.
Yeah, I'm not Nate Bargatze. I apologize. I am. I'm not clean humor. You're not clean. Are you guys clean or you kind of?
Oh no, not at all.
No. I've seen your acting.
Yes.
Lisandra, I can't imagine.
Well, no, I mean, I don't actually talk about politics very much on stage.
Good.
It's just not something that especially in Georgia, where I'm performing in anywhere in the South, it's risky, especially as a woman. It's risky as a woman to say your opinion and be on stage anyway. Yeah. But last night, I was at the Punchline. This weekend, I featured for a clean white male comic. And that's a different room. That room is a different audience, and you kind of it sucks to have to you just have to select what material is going to work best for that audience, what's going to fall well on their ears and serve because as a comedian, this, David, it's you have to serve the needs. If you're featuring, you have to serve the needs of the headliner, and you have to set up the room. So it's really not really about me. I just need to make sure that they're having a good time and that they like me enough. Because they're also not there to see me. But he was a clean white male comic who specifically was like, "Hey, I throw softballs. I'm not controversial." And then he would just talk about the glasses on top of his head, and people were eating it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a different scene, Yeah. I had Titus on the show. I love telling the story because I had Titus and Rachel Bradley, his wife, were going to be on the show, but they're in LA, and Rachel told me to fuck off and not get up at 8 a.m. So she didn't come on. and Rachel opens for Titus, and you're right. You've got to queue up your lead in a certain way. You're on tour, right? You're both on tour right now, aren't you? Or Dave, are you on tour? I know you had a new special come out. I don't know if you're on tour right now. I apologize.
I'm always kind of on tour.
Yeah, I was going to say, you always hit clubs.
Coming up for sure.
Yeah. I know you had a new special come out on Patreon just recently, so you got a lot going on yourself, right?
Yeah, I self-produced my own special, which was a move.
Well, look at my production, David. Look, you guys are on.
I think you're doing great.
We're raking in the dollars. It looks good because JJ's back there crashing buttons right now. Katie's back there trying to get people connected. So it's self-funding and self-production is a hell of a lot of fun, and it's
and we can do that now. That's the beautiful thing.
Well, that's it, right? It's like I'm in my freaking basement, y'all. I mean, it's great, I
don't even live here, so I get it. This is.
Well, you know what? It's time for panel picks, and sometimes I'll tell guests what it is, but I don't tell them this. I didn't tell you guys because I've seen you guys in action. You don't get, So JJ, bring up the panel picks. So the way this works, you guys, is we throw out these 4 things. You get to pick one to talk about. You may recognize, you may not. We riff, go for it. Lisandra, ladies first. You've got Republican makeup tips. Your mom's wisdom, because both of you come with, you're both, I've got my Italian mom. Y'all got, I think, Sierra Leone, if I remember correctly, David, and Puerto Rican. What would Taylor Swift sing about you, David? And and the comment section, because we were just talking about it. So, Lisandra, ladies first.
I I'm tempted to go with Republican makeup tips.
Okay, go for
I will. I'll go with Republican makeup tips. An online friend of mine, Suzanne Lambert. She's the creator who started the trend of Republican makeup. And it's really so funny because after the election, I started using the bold glamour filter to do character of the MAGA woman because they
Alright.
have such a distinct way of doing their makeup, and it is very of the past. Okay, and that's a beautiful. I'm being polite, obviously, but
Yeah.
it lacks a lot of curiosity as to how product can grow over time and change and shift. So they use a lot of the same things that they've used for the last 20 years, and there's a lot of eyeliner. Uh, and I don't want to say crusty and dusty, but those are the words that come to mind. And it is consistent across the board because
Yeah.
every time I get a nasty comment from somebody telling me that I'm a woman tearing other women down just by criticizing somebody's putrid character, it is somebody that has a lot of heavy black eyeliner here.
Yeah.
And then they also have
Like JD Vance? I'm sorry.
they have to have, and you know how Donald Trump has that orange glow, and then he also
Yes.
has like a lot of concealer here. Well, they mimic that, and then they'll pair that with a nice Bible verse, which is really beautiful.
My favorite. I'm sure you run through a lot, David.
Listen, I agree. I love a dark green shadow in an Ecclesiastes verse.
Right.
Yeah, nothing says Christian like that as
And
much as
then and then they also were because one of my favorite things is to keep the people that I went to high school with on Facebook. I'm not really active on Facebook, but like you said, Fred, that you're I like to go into sort of incognito mode on
yes,
Twitter,
exactly.
where you go and see my barrel of of the beast is my belly of the beast is the Facebook. All the
Yeah.
people I went to high school with, because I went to high school in
Yeah.
Florida. And so
Yeah.
all these people are just they're like, that's right, RFK Jr., that's right. And I'm just that's where I get a lot of my inspiration for my MAGA characters is just people I knew. And
Yeah.
it's also so funny seeing all these girls I know got abortions, speaking so against, honey, now you're getting some abortions? That's
Yeah.
crazy. I remember you getting two. Okay.
Treatment bed conversion, I guess. I mean, it's not deathbed, I guess, but yeah,
Yeah,
funny
go
how that
for it.
works out. Yeah, I had to lock my Facebook down because of death threats. But I'm not gonna do that. We had a security come say, you need to delete your entire Facebook. Like, well, I could just lock it. It's another technique to do. But all right, bring the panel back up. Bring the picks back up, JJ. David, you're up, my friend. You get a choice here.
I guess I have a lot of history with it. I'd say my mom's wisdom.
Yes.
I think that's gotta be
yes. And your mom, again, you're Sierra Leone, right?
Sierra Leone, West
Immigrant,
Africa.
first generation?
Yeah, I'm first generation, first person in my family ever born here. And I would say that my mom's wisdom is aggressively normal. She's really cuts through everything. Like I'll be out trying to have a discussion. She'll be like, "Yeah, but those are stupid people," and you're like, "Oh, that's right. You could just say that. You're right, Mom. It's just stupid people. There's
just
no
cut the chase.
thing to it. You know what I mean? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm feeling bad. I'm overeating or something. Don't do that. Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't think about it like that. I think there's a level sometimes of there's a simplicity to it where she's able to really cut through everything. And especially right now where everybody's so obsessed with nuance, it feels like it's really nice to kind of hear that sometimes.
Yeah, you got pure Puerto Rican mom, right, Lisandra? I mean,
yeah.
the classic.
I love that. I feel like that's so beautiful. I don't know if you've ever dealt with a Latina mother, but they don't do that. It's more like
it's not simplicity.
No. It's always a way to figure out how to make it about them. being it's like a little bit of a way to figure out how to blame you for something a little bit. Like I just for as an example, I was like, I'm planning a trip to Puerto Rico next month, and I was like, hey mom, my parents are divorced, and so I was like, hey mom, is it okay if I go and visit dad for one night? Like, but I want to make sure that you know that my time is with you. And she's like, Lisandra, that is okay. It is about time that you made me a priority. I'm like, you're literally always a priority. I call you every day. It's like, it's about time you made me a priority. And it's just like, okay, thank you. Okay, no, I got it. You guys don't love me as much as you love him. Okay, okay, okay. I'll see
We,
you. See you
my
in
mom was
February.
Italian. My mom was Italian. She passed. She was second generation, and the things she brought at me. The thing about my mom's wisdom was more of her right hook was like because my mom was like 4'11". I mean,
Oh, snake.
yeah, the classic Italian, fat curly hair. It's where I get my curls from, and she could. I'm not tall. I'm not gonna. I know everybody thinks I'm tall, But I was taller than her, but I don't remember that. I remember, I remember her towering over me, into a corner with that slap. I was like, she scared the show me. But the funny one in my life is, and I'm gonna get in trouble for this. I hope Heather might be watching, my partner, but her mom is a Nebraska. They're Dutch by ethnic Dutch, and we joke about Dutch grandma, and it's the same thing as you, David. It's very just matter of fact. We have a group chat, and Jimmy Carter died. And we're like, oh, it's so sad. He was a good man. It's such a loss. And our mother-in-law chimes in with, well, he was old. Like, okay. I mean, I said, that's true. I got, the dog died. Well, dogs die. Like, well, that is true. It's like, okay, that's a fact. It's just very, like you said, very matter of fact. Like, don't get over it, move on, next. It's like, okay, we're not going to bemoan this. Not a lot. I love it. We joke all the time about having like Dutch grandma greeting cards someday. We write them all down. The sympathy card. Well, they were old. But best of luck. But I don't know. But that's well, we're all children of our mothers. So all right, bring the panels, but picks back up, JJ. Lisandra, you're back up again.
Comment section.
Oh, there you go. Right. All right. I mean, it's a life, isn't it? It's super fun. I mean, I know I've seen your comments, Lisandra. You get hit hard. I mean, on Instagram.
Oh, and on TikTok, it's bad. It's bad.
TikTok.
Like I feel, and also like once something gets rolling, people will just continue to go. And I feel like there's a certain point where you have to completely log out of your mind and just completely disassociate, because what people are saying online is not true, and it's not a reflection of you. These people don't know you. These people don't actually know how much research you are, like they just don't know you. So when somebody makes an accusation, or when somebody makes a claim, or says something hateful, you have to, like, as a person, take a step back and be like, this actually doesn't have anything to do with me. You are projecting onto me, and you have to really protect yourself. So that's what I really had to do with the comments, and like any sort of like weird video or TikTok, Instagram energy. You just got to remove yourself, because at the end of the day, what really matters is like the work that you're doing in real life, and like yourself. So man, because I get a lot, especially as a woman. As a woman putting out an opinion, I get called. It's the misogyny on the internet is crazy, and that's like especially from the cat lady video that we did.
Yeah.
We did the way that the comment section just grew and grew and grew for that, just as a form of like as a forum for people to spew hatred for women, was crazy. Especially like for calling us. Somebody called us a barren hyenas.
Okay.
That would be a great band name.
I was gonna say, yeah. Touring next week.
And I know, like, not to speak for my friend who was in the video with me, but I know it had different spaces of bothering us at first, but then at the same time I was like, well, let's just take this as data. So I now take the comment section as data collection to be able to then write material, because at the end of the day, I am an artist, and my job is not my job, but it's my in order to process all this crazy, I need to take all of what's happening and take it in as data points. So then when the next time I write something, I can pull from that database that I have. So that's how I use the comment section now.
Right.
But I'm also human. You know, sometimes things like will get to me, but I just have to like go touch grass. You know what I mean? I have to go. I'll spend a couple days offline or something like that, and really try to like only connect to certain things. But it's hard.
I will say
It took me a
sometimes
while.
they get you too. I've had a couple comments where I was like, "Damn, that might be funnier."
Yeah, you got me on that one, bro. You landed that one.
Really?
Like, and that's crazy. You
Yeah.
got me.
Yeah. Well, because we are human. I think
Usually
people
no
forget they're
face kind
human.
of situation.
Yeah. And Dave, I know you get beat up too. I mean, you're not a softball. You don't throw softballs.
Yeah, I personally, I sort of tend to stay away from it. I really value live performance, so I think that that's where I take my data a lot of times. If there's
Yeah.
like heckles or people reacting poorly within that space, that kind of to me seems more true. But I think sometimes, especially with comments, it's just the point is rage bait. It's a lot of people who that's the only way that they engage with the internet is to make fun of people on the comments of things that they don't probably even particularly care about. So
Right.
it is kind of like sometimes it does feel skewed, but in the room, you know, if I bombed in the room or I get an angry yell in the room, I'm like, okay, maybe I pressed some buttons on that one. And that's
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah, that's
tends
the thing. It took me a while. You know, I wasn't. You know, I think I mentioned earlier. I think with Lisandra, we were talking the pre-show. It was like I wasn't in politics. I mean, I wasn't known. I was a veterans advocate, and then I got thrust into the Lincoln Project 4 years ago, and suddenly I'm in the middle of like one of the largest organizations. I had negative news stories being written about me. You know, it was just it's the weirdest thing. You know, and also I'm getting all this hate, and it is those first. You know, it does land sometimes. You know, and then you learn. Okay, well, that's not real. You know, they don't know shit about me. And you're right, it's trolls and now I barely even look now. It's funny. It's and I actually posted on Twitter, I think yesterday when I was because I like to I do troll and there. Somebody was saying, "Oh, I hate the show because you like Twitter." Like, well, I'm sorry. We have to monitor the guy who's running our government happens to run it. So yeah, I'm going to stay on and keep it. You know, I'm sorry. I got bad news for you. That's where news happens. But having said that, I love to throw bombs in there now and just because they think, oh, I'll get the DMs and the hidden DMs like, oh, you're getting owned. Like, no, I'm not. You know? I didn't see your shit, bro. You know, Bob 8888888. I don't even fucking know who you are, bro. You know, I am not owned by you. You know,
that's the other thing is it's so confusing. You can watch a comment thread that went nuts, and there's like 8 different takes on what's happening real time, and you're like, oh, like as my mom would say, you're stupid. You're just like,
right.
like people are like,
Right.
oh, I can't believe he's getting cooked in the comments, and it's like people like quoting inaccuracies and shit like that. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, this isn't. You don't even have a great view of what's going on right now.
Yeah, I don't even see it. You know, it's
Also,
not worth it.
I have to remind myself too that like these trolls and these bullies are gonna bully no matter what. They're gonna, so sometimes it's directed towards me, sometimes it's directed towards you. Like it will be if somebody has an axe to grind, they will find something and they will cherry pick evidence to like put it out there, right? So it's
Yeah.
not like those trolls are gonna find somebody to spew their hatred towards. And sometimes it's you, sometimes it's another person. They'll always
Right.
move on.
Right.
And so I feel like I know that you were talking about like sometimes you get negative stuff written about you or something like that. And that's like it's a especially when it's not in alignment with like what your purpose is and what your intention is and what historically you've put out there. It's just like, oh my gosh, this is very confronting. But then you want to be able to just keep moving past it because everything passes, especially like but you just have to continue to doing your work.
That's
It's
it.
hard.
That's exactly. And that first time when the negative news stories came out, and they hit hard. They got me good. I mean, I had a bankruptcy after 9/11. I had one when my company failed during the pandemic. Okay, you got me. You know, but having that written and shared across the internet, and the favorite part of that is I used to do when I first got in the military. I first joined I used to wear lots of colors more. I had pink sweaters and orange. I looked great in color, and they love putting this picture of me wearing a pink sweater during interviews. Like, well, you owned me. You know, wait till my 4 kids find out that I'm, it's like, dude, it's it's just hilarious. Like, you think I'm a 59-year-old white guy. I don't care what you think of my looks. I don't care. I know exactly. I'm kind of comfortable with my skin at this point. But anyway, we're right there. We don't need to skip Taylor Swift songs. The most important part of a panel, of course, is tell our folks where they can find you, where they can track you down to see you live. Go ahead. This is your portion to plug. Lisandra, where are you at right now, and where can people find you?
Well, I'm based out of Atlanta, Georgia. So if you're in the Atlanta area, I'm doing shows all the time. I travel a little bit for comedy, but you can also find me on TikTok and Instagram, all the platforms, Lisandra V Comedy.
David?
I'm only on Instagram, Cool Guy Jokes
Okay.
87, and I think March 1st I'm going to be at the Carco Theater in Renton, Washington. March 14th, Comedy Commonwealth in Dayton, Kentucky, and March 15th, Comedy Corner Underground in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Getting around, man. That's good. I love it. All good places. And of course, you got a lot of podcasts. You can do a couple of podcasts, don't you?
I do a couple of podcasts. I do a podcast about Black conspiracy theories with Langston Kerman called My Mama Told Me, and then a podcast where we fantasy draft things that aren't sports with Ian Carmel and Sean Jordan called All Fantasy Everything.
I love that one. I've watched a lot of clips of that one, and the stuff you guys come up with. Blame Moo Dang for the election, for example. So
who did that? Who did that? We just had
Dan Hippo picked wrong. Don't tell me about causation and correlation. I want to hear your fucking science. It's the hippo's fault. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. I can't enjoy. We need a good laugh, and why do you guys invite it? So hopefully we'll get you back on again here soon. Okay.
All right. Thanks for having us.
Have a great Sunday. I just love the panel. It's my favorite part of the week, and we had great guests. So great to meet David and Lisandra. I'm very fortunate. So thanks for joining us. We're going to have to go all serious again now, which is fine because there's a lot going on. Every week I want to talk to one of our elected officials, hear right from the horse's mouth of what's going on in DC and their approaches to it. This week I was very fortunate to catch up to Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur. If you don't know Marcy Kaptur, if Marcy she's been around for a while. She's been in Congress since 1983, and Representative Kaptur really kind of made it great. We were talking about JD Vance getting owned earlier. When JD showed up at the UAW strike in her district, she's famous because as he walked up, she says, "Hey, JD, first time here," and it kind of went viral because he tried to fist bump her. Anyway, if you haven't seen it, look it up. But Congresswoman Kaptur represents Ohio's 9th district. She's the longest serving woman in Congress, having served since 1983. She's on the powerful House Appropriations Committee as the ranking member of the Energy and Water Subcommittee. She's got a lot of perspective on what's going on. I'm going to caveat this. We actually interviewed Representative Kaptur on Friday afternoon because of her incredibly busy schedule. So we'd spoken before the Friday Night Massacre. So we'll keep that in mind. But welcome Representative Marcy Kaptur to the show. Representative Kaptur, man, thank you so much for joining us. I know you're crazy busy right now. What a time to be in Washington, D.C., isn't it?
Yes, I guess we were made for this moment in our country's history. That's how I feel every day.
I can imagine. You've been there for a while. One of the reasons I want to talk to you, you've served since 1983. I was eager to get your perspective on, this is just, we always say unprecedented times. But I think starting at the top, it's an unprecedented time. It really seems like your Republican colleagues have the majority and handed over Article 1 power like nothing I've seen. You've got a lot of years on the Hill. Have you ever seen such a handing over of the power of Congress before?
There's real fear. Fear is motivating it. It isn't really lack of patriotism, but what they're being told behind closed doors, what they've seen happen to their colleagues, they are really afraid. And rather than standing up together, they're caving. And this is not good for the country. And in the House where I serve, and even in the Senate, the margin is pretty close, and the American people are watching, and they're paying attention. I don't care what party you're in, whether you're an independent, whatever you are, you're seeing this and you're not liking what you see. In my area, I'll just say inflation has been ticking up, unemployment is ticking up, Walmart's sales have gone way down. I represent a lot of people that work in Walmart stores. It's not what was promised. And in terms of our defense posture and our foreign policy, I have never seen a president of the United States go to a tyrant and say, give his son-in-law $2 billion as cash over and to spend it however he wants. The son-in-law of our president. I've never seen this before. And what's sort of getting sandwiched in between is the nation of Ukraine that's been fighting for its freedom. And to have a president say that they invaded Russia, I mean, it's the other way. And it was astounding. Their statements were, I thought, do they think this is a play? This is real life.
And it is, and it's affecting a lot of folks. You said it's just not ticking up; it's ticking up fast. I mean, I can't imagine a more red siren than Walmart sales going down. Right? You know, my own daughter owns a small business in Virginia. She's seen a plummeting of sales because she lives in a district, you know, in Northern Virginia where it's federal workers, it's military members. Everyone sort of stopped spending because their fear. And, you know, you're watching these I imagine you're watching these firing of key federal workers unfold. I know you're on the energy subcommittee. I mean, they fired the National Nuclear Security Agency members. I believe you authored a letter with your Senate colleague on that. I mean, it's shocking, right?
Yes, it's like this. It's, hey, wait a minute. Our nuclear security is so critical to our defense. It is central to our defense globally. And they didn't even know what they were doing.
Right.
And they've done that in more than one agency. And then it comes back to bite them. They were even doing the air controllers. In my region for NASA, I keep looking at this Mr. Musk and saying to myself, I heard him say he wants to plant the flag on Mars. My region, our NASA, Glenn and Armstrong centers built that. And we're going to plant the U.S. flag, and he's not going to do it because there's no veteran in his family either. He's lived in this country for about 2 decades. That's it. And he has 3 citizenships. I've really been asking myself the question, if push comes to shove, which country is he really a citizen of? He's no veteran. There's nobody who's related to him that's a veteran of this country. So these individuals are very unusual. They've not been local officials. They've not been state officials. They've never worked in government before, although Musk is very interesting because he has hundreds of millions, actually billions of dollars of contracts with the federal government. And I'm saying, how did he get himself burrowed in there so deeply? I've never represented a company, and I've served over 4 decades now, that has that kind of influence. Why? Who? How did he get that?
Well, $288 million, right? And bought himself an election, you know, and we're going to pay, aren't we?
But he was burrowing in before. He just picked his horse this time and got on it. But what's troubling me is he was a naturalized citizen. But what are his connections now as you look across the government to South Africa and some of its interests? Canada, he's a citizen of Canada. And I'm thinking, oh, is that where the idea for the 51st state came from? Because his mother lives there, if she still lives there. There's no loyalty. It's all self-service, business, benefiting him. Now the richest man in the world, I think.
Yeah, and it's a dismantling. And then we just had that shocking story yesterday in the Washington Post that Trump is talking about firing the entire Postal Service board, moving them to the Commerce Department, which we all know really is a gift as well, a privatization effort. I mean, we represent veterans a lot. I think the number is something like 300,000 veterans work there. I mean, the number of veterans that work, I mean, it is a shocking thing. I mean, Washington himself established the Postal Service by law, right? I mean, these aren't legal, are they? And none of these moves are legal in any way.
None are legal. It'll be tied up in the courts. They are trying to keep everybody so busy fighting this, fighting that, that they can't do their job. And they put a freeze on hiring. But look at this. We don't have enough air controllers, right? And look at the crashes we've had lately, okay? That has been a weak part of our transportation department. Not that we don't want it. I want it. But it's been held up for various reasons. If you look at the bird flu issue right now, they were laying off people in that division. They didn't even know it. And we've got this crisis on our hands in all these companies whose livelihoods are affected, and they laid off people there. At the Department of Energy, we've talked about the nuclear security staff at many of our most critical labs. And as far as the Postal Service goes, they need attention. I couldn't figure out why Mr. DeJoy, who ran the Postal Service these last several years, didn't leave, because a lot of people really didn't care for what he was doing.
No, not a popular guy.
Now he's moved out. The minute this administration was in place, it didn't take him less than a month, and he left because he owns fleets of trucks. He has a big interest in shipping on ground through ground transportation in this country. I'm going, oh, I see what's going on. They're going to hand it over to him through the Department of Commerce. This is absolutely un-American. This is absolutely inside dealing, and it's wrong, and it's unconstitutional.
It's dismantling of our government, and and you talk about the red flags of Elon Musk. I mean, we saw the White House say, well, when he runs into a conflict of interest, he'll just identify it, which is I think John Oliver pointed out on his show. If you ever watch that on Sunday nights, man, that in effect is a conflict of interest. They don't really care for ethics laws, do they? I mean, it's just been ignored completely.
They're so rich, they don't know. They don't respect the institutions of our Constitution. We have 3 branches of government. That was done for a reason. And they found these little areas when the government transitions or just after an election that they would view as vulnerable moments in democracy and the way that this republic functions. And they've tried to exploit those in a very crude way. And they're doing damage. Now they want to get rid of the Department of Education. And teachers who have a hard job, believe me, and school personnel. I was complimenting some of our police officers the other day who now have to go into our schools because of fear, right? We need to have calm. We need to have people who care about youth and help them become educated and deal with some of the trash that's coming over these social media sites where they are believing what is false and doing harm to one another. Even guns in the schools now that youth are carrying. We have to fix this. You don't do that by creating chaos in any of our educational departments, whether it's state or whether it's federal, right? You want to strengthen, not weaken. But it doesn't matter. They're poking their finger in all these places. And in a non-reasoned way, in a way that just creates trouble. Then they have to go to court, then they don't get their way, then they go back, then they find another department. I noticed yesterday or the day before, Mr. Musk was presented with a chainsaw. He didn't even know which end was up. And I thought, come to my district. I'll show you. My neighbor's got a chainsaw. He knows how to use it. But, that's evidence of he's never done a lick of work with a chainsaw.
No. Yeah, he's not done a lick of work of any real kind. All of his money is handed to him in a package in his little life, and that's the thing about working people, right? Your colleagues in the Republican colleagues gave you a bill, the budget bill, that's going to hurt actual working people, isn't it? Medicare. I mean, it's devastating what they're trying to do to actual Americans, aren't they?
I have 8 counties, and 7 of them are rural counties, and their hospitals. One is already closing. We lost another one earlier last year. And so what we're seeing is this shrinkage of the ability to heal people in these rural areas. And we really need regional convenings of the business community, the hospital owners, the medical professions to say, look, what do we do across this region? Because it's becoming unaffordable. And people are paying plenty out of their pocket for insurance. They're not getting their money's worth. And it's like it's nobody's fault, but the system as a whole is not functioning very well. And we have to, and there are doctors in maternal health. Individuals are not going into that profession in OBGYN because they're afraid they're going to be arrested or something, where these politicians are sticking their nose in people's personal medical business. And that's wrong. That's un-American, but it's what's happening. And so the region I represent here in Ohio has the highest maternal and infant death rate.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this isn't going to help. I mean, cutting Medicare, cutting these funds It's the idea of a work requirement. I've heard Speaker Johnson float these ideas. I mean, you've been at this for a couple of days. I mean, they don't even understand. I think what bothers me is you just said it very clearly. They don't even know who they're talking about. Do they? They don't know who is actually using their services. There seems to be a disconnect between understanding the actual humans they affect with these policies and what they've got. I mean, the idea of a 90-year-old person having a work requirement, right? It's all ludicrous, isn't it?
They don't. It's ludicrous. They don't care about people. They only care about their money, and how much more they can make. And I really ask myself, when you have billions of dollars, what do you do with all that? How many mansions, how many boats, how many vacations can you take? Jewelry. I mean, it's overkill. It's and it changes them, and of course they don't see it.
Yeah, well, they want to be the first trillionaire. And I really, want to ask you a tough one. And you and your colleagues, I know you're getting a ton of calls. You're getting beat up by people on the Democratic side saying, "Hey, Democrats, we need you to fight more." I'm sure you're getting a ton of calls from your district. How do you respond to that when people are saying, "Hey, we need Dems to step up"? What do you recommend? What are you doing, ma'am? And what are your colleagues? And what do you want us to do? I guess.
Well, number one, they need to call their representative, but more importantly, those on the side of the aisle I'm not on the Republican side of the aisle.
I live in Ann Wagner's district, ma'am.
So you need to call your representative. And people weren't even thinking, strategically, oh, well, we better register our opinion with them. Yes. I think what's been happening around the country, people are voicing their concerns, people who are being impacted. So, for example, there was a major event in Cleveland, Ohio. I don't have a big federal building with all these employees who work hard every day doing all the accounting ledgers for parts of our federal government. But all of them, they thought they were going to be furloughed. Some of them were what's called in a probationary status. And those are the people that are quite talented, and they're in that position to see if they can handle it. And then they raise them up because there's a merit system inside of the employment bureaus of the federal government. You just can't fire at will, and you people are vetted for the positions they're in. Some of the cuts they made, like in NASA, as well as the Department of Energy, those are some of the most intelligent, highly skilled individuals in this country. And they were thought, oh my goodness, they're in this probationary place, and the administration was saying they're going to get rid of all of them. That is like getting rid of our seed corn. That is so stupid. They didn't even understand what they were doing.
Right. The next generation of civil servants, the whole next generation that we need.
Yes, and very intelligent individuals whose backgrounds are checked. One thing that really bothers me about Mr. Musk, he doesn't have to go through the vetting that I did. I worked for a former president of the United States. When you get into one of those positions of hiring for serving the president of the United States, the FBI comes and they interview your grade school teachers, your grade school friends, your high school, your former employers, your neighbors. I mean, your relatives. And he just waltzes in, and I'm going, hey, wait a minute! I've had 3 generations of my family here, and I have to disclose all my donations, all how much money I earn. I have to live in the DC area, which is so expensive, and out here in Ohio. So we have all, double property taxes, double this, double that. All that has to be declared. He doesn't have to declare anything. This is wrong. And I've been a citizen longer here than he has, and so has my family.
Man, I know it's all insanity, and you've got your work cut out for your work. I'm glad you're there. So it is a tough fight. What's your next fight, man? Then I'll let you go. I guess the budget, isn't it?
Well, the Senate just cleared a budget resolution late last night.
Okay.
It looks as though it's another foul ball. In other words, there isn't really funding in there, and it's going to come to the House, and then they're going to try to give massive tax breaks to billionaires, and if he's a trillionaire, to him too.
By that point.
Right? And so I've asked my staff to calculate, what does the middle class get? What does the working class get? And what do these people who earn over $6.7 million a year, what are they going to get? How much? And what we found is that back from when President Trump was first president from 2016 to 2020, his tax cuts alone added $2 trillion to our national debt.
Yeah.
And if you go back all the way to President Reagan, if you total up all the debt, a huge share of it, is due to tax cuts to the very wealthy. And that's why the middle class, and especially the working class where I come from, we're not getting those benefits. They're going to the top. You can see it in any economics textbook, how much the top 1% own as much as the bottom half of our population. Think about that. So if you earn over $6.7 million, you're going to get tens of thousands of dollars back. If you're in the bottom half of the population, which my district is, if you get $70, you're going to be lucky. Okay. So it's completely tilted to the top. And
That's
so
working out for you.
the American people, we have to explain it to them, and they got a lot on their mind right now. But I mean, they're going to get, the top is going to get tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And we get a few $10 bills down here. Oh no, I can't support anything like that. So we'll see what happens when it comes over to the House. And the other thing that they're doing, they're trying to kill the Department of Education. They want to take all that money. And they're not saying if they're going to return anything to the states or anything like that. They're also from Medicaid and Social Security and Medicare, our rural hospitals, our urban hospitals, they are going to take an enormous amount of money out of that. And for children who are special, that is directly in the Social Security lane and the Medicaid lane. And I'm getting calls from parents. They know with all they deal with. I'd like to see Donald Trump and Mr. Musk spend a week with those families and see what they have to deal with. So this is all on the chopping block right now.
Okay. All right. Well, you got your working out for you, ma'am. I'll let you get to it. Thank you so much. We appreciate taking time for us here.
Thank you for being a voice for the people. Thank you.
Oh, that's a pleasure, ma'am. Thank you so much. You have a great day.
You too.
Great conversation. Representative Kaptur is a force of nature. Everybody who knows her on the Hill knows what a force of nature she is. You should follow her. She's got a great team that brought her to us. So obviously they've got their work cut out for them, as this insane budget is going to hurt working families. And I think that's the message we got to keep pounding, that this isn't about break. I mean, it's easy to say it's a tax break, but it's true. But really, instead of saying it's a tax break to billionaires, say it's a crime against working Americans, right? A lot of people think they're going to be rich, but the truth of the matter is this is directly targeting average people who are already trying to make ends meet. And it doesn't matter who they voted for. 200,000 are losing their jobs, people losing their health care. I don't know if you saw it. They quietly announced that Medicare is no longer going to support telehealth appointments starting on 1 April. I cannot tell you how devastating the idea of pulling support for telehealth is going to be to millions and millions of people who rely on it, because the only health care they're getting, as the representative mentioned, rural hospitals have closed. We've lost 13 rural hospitals in Missouri that I know of. That means the only way for you to get a doctor is perhaps by telehealth. I spoke to a woman, Kaylee Peterson, who was running for Congress in Idaho. She had a staffer who was pregnant. It's 275 miles to the nearest OBGYN in her district because of the closures of rural hospitals and lack of doctors. So now no telehealth appointments is going to be supported by Medicare. This is the kind of stuff that they're quietly floating out that will devastate average people. And that's what we have to fight back about. That's the story. You saw a theme in both of our interviews about how do we message to Americans so they understand what's happening through the smoke and mirrors. But speaking of smoke and mirrors, we started the show off with the news about the Friday night massacre. One of the things we have not heard from, and we had never heard from, was Pete Hegseth himself saying why he fired the lawyers. Well, of course, where would Pete Hegseth go other than anywhere else on earth? Fox News. So he did appear on Fox News this morning, and he was asked about the firing of the attorneys, the JAGs. And this is what he had to say. JJ, let's run that video.
branches. For people who may not know, I mean, they give advice to the military about what is lawful and what isn't. Not surprisingly, there's been some backlash to those who are worried about their removal. One Georgetown law professor says this: Trump also firing the Army, Navy, and Air Force JAGs. In some ways, that's even more chilling than firing the 4-stars. It's what you do when you're planning to break the law. You get rid of any lawyers who might try to slow you down. Your response to her?
I don't know who Rosa is and what her hyperbole is all about. Ultimately, we want lawyers who give sound constitutional advice and don't exist to attempt to be roadblocks to anything that happens in their spots. What we know about these TJAGs, they're called TJAGs inside the military. Traditionally, they've been elected by each other or chosen by each other, which is exactly how it works often with the chairman as well. Small group of insulated officers who perpetuate the status quo. Well, guess what? Status quo hasn't worked very well at the Pentagon. It's time for fresh blood. So we're going to open.
Well, first, Rosa Brooks. Rosa Brooks is the chair, a professor of law and policy at Georgetown Law School. She's a graduate of Harvard, Oxford, and Yale, and she's a respected national security consultant on matters of law and policy. So Hegseth knows that. He's full of shit. But I want to keep back that one little comment he meant. There were roadblocks. So they're trying to make this sound like, oh, this is insult. It's the elites. They're not. He said the key statement was very simple. They were roadblocks to what we wanted to do. He gave away the goods right there, folks. They fired the lawyers for exactly the reason that Rosa Brooks stated, which is the lawyers are the ones that tell you no. And this is what I've been saying since Friday night. And there you go. Pete Hegseth on the record thinking he's being fucking clever, confirming exactly that. He's not clever. The guy is so dumb. He's just so dumb. Okay. He thinks he's so clever. He thinks he's the smartest guy in the room, and he's dumb. He said it very clearly. These guys were roadblocks. I have it from inside sources. They never consulted the TJAGs. These guys never knew they were being fired. Hegseth never reached out and had a conversation with them about the way they do their work, how they would work with them. They never reached out to him. He just outright fired them, which tells you they plan to install friendly people. He said, well, so now we know they're not going to select the next JAGs in the traditional system. The fact is, the way this works is, if you're a specialized area like law, you're a lawyer in the military, it's a very, very small pyramid. There's only so far you can go. There's only so many lawyer jobs. The pinnacle of that is what we call the TJAG, the JAG, for the entire United States military. Of course, that's the system. That's the system in a corporation. You don't bring somebody, but it's not like a regular company. We can hire an outside CEO because they have to be a lawyer in the Army for 40 years to be 3 stars. So it'll be very interesting to see who he brings in. I mean, we really have to watch now. He flat out said the reason they fired the JAGs was because they were a roadblock to what they want to do. Well, then, folks, what do they want to do? We know in Project 2025, they want to use the Insurrection Act. They want to use our troops in internment camps and making raids for illegal immigrants in their eyes. They want to use troops to put down demonstrations. It's in Project 2025. A lot of those are pretty damn close to illegal. So now he wants to install attorneys in the Army, Air Force, and Navy that will not get in the way of using these forces. Is it going to be legal now to do raids into Mexico, a sovereign nation? What about an invasion of Iceland, or invasion of, Greenland, or an invasion of Panama, or hell, an invasion of Canada, a treaty ally? He wants to install lawyers that won't be roadblocks. Right out of the horse's mouth. A very stupid horse. But that's where we're at, folks. So it is going to get worse. I hate to say. All we can do is speak out and fight back like this. They are hearing us. That's why they're scared. That's why he's on Fox News desperately trying to spin this. Again, he's also stupid, so he spun it the wrong way. Once again, that's what Pete Hegseth does. So I love getting Pete Hegseth on camera. He always says something stupid. Remember him not washing his hands for 10 years? So, there's a lot going on there. They've also shut down the Pentagon's press room from outside press. So they're trying to keep the press from nosing around the Pentagon. So the last thing I'll say for this week, folks, I've got a lot of people reaching out to me. If you've got tips, if you've got news tips, if you've got something I can use to spread the word, something we can give to the media, please reach out. I've been very fortunate. I'm hearing from a lot of folks who work for the federal government. If you reach out to me through DMs and any of my social networks, I do check DMs. all of them, unfortunately. But if you DM me, I will see it, and I'll be more than happy to give you my information if it's a reasonable request. And I'm looking for tips about these kind of things. The way we're going to fight these guys is getting the information we need to fight them back. And that's what I'm here for. This is independent media. And with that, on that independent media note, thank you for being part of us. Wow, we're up to 3,000 now. I mean, I appreciate you. I'd love to make that 5,000 next week. If you get more folks to join us, tell your friends and neighbors to join us. We've got a lot of great stuff coming up on the show. We've got another great show next week already booked. I hope you enjoy joining us. Again, it's go to the On Moxie channel on YouTube and like us. You can follow me on all my social networks. I'm FPWellman pretty much everywhere. I might be FPWellman official on Instagram. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to like. And really would love you to follow our Substack channel. It's fpwellman.substack.com. The Substack's growing rapidly. My post this week went viral somehow, and 2,000 people subscribed. So I would love you to follow us there. It's where I do my long form writing about topics like this. I did a long one this week about the Friday Night Massacre. Those are places to hide Roma. That's humbling. Thank you for being part of our family, part of this community. It's very important. This is how we fight them back. We bring people like our guests on to talk about these things and make sure they understand that we're not going down. We're not going down without a fight, folks. We are fighting for our democracy at this point, and that's all of us together. With that, it's Friday. It's Sunday morning. Go enjoy your day. We just really appreciate you. Thank you to JJ and Katie for keeping us on track. You get better and better every week. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we will see you right here, same place, same time, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, right here on the On Moxie channel. Thanks for joining us.